Hello, everyone, and welcome to the She Exudes Now virtual talks. I am your host, Alicia Renee, and I am a inspirational author. I am a certified life coach specializing in confidence and empowerment for women, and I am the founder of The Confident Lily. So, the She Exudes Now platform is all about my devotional, She Exudes Now. And the purpose is for us to encourage and inspire women to be the best that they can be on a daily basis. So we cover a variety of topics that are practical, and we also want to inspire them to have more faith as well. So, tonight we have a great topic. We are going to be talking about the keys to having a successful marriage. So, it is happy wife, happy life. So I'm sure you have heard that term before, but we're looking forward to going deeper and exploring exactly what that means. So I have a wonderful guest today that I am going to bring to the podium here so that she can introduce herself. We have Miss Florence White. Florence, hello.
Hi, thank you
How
for
are
having
you?
me.
Oh,
I am
thank
great.
you. Thank you so much for being a part of the She Exudes Now virtual talk. And before we get started, I'd like to ask all of my guests, what are you exuding today? So I know for me, I'm exuding a couple different things. I am exuding, first of all, some resilience because I've just been kind of pushing through and just, believing that God will kind of make some ways and having that tough skin to kind of continue to move through even when I don't want to. But I am just happy and I'm probably oozing with resilience right now because I just feel like I'm going to get there. So a way is going to be made somehow. What about you?
I would say today, my thing is courage. Because with me, being that I'm very introverted and I was very shy as well. And one of my fears were public speaking.
Hmm.
So every time that I get ready to be interviewed by someone or do anything that have to do with the public, I have to have courage to do it. And I'm so thankful that God has given me that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny that you say that because you have an online ministry. And so, with that, you are broadcasting to all. And so, you do have that courage. Sometimes we just have to step out and claim it and
It's
just
true.
work, just, act in it. And God just always blesses. So, I know that
Amen.
you are going to be phenomenal because you've already done great things. So,
Thank you.
yep. All right. So, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your background, what you do, and also about your marriage. We want to
Okay.
hear, how long have you been married and all the good stuff that you'd like to share with us.
Okay. Well, I guess you would call me a church girl because I was raised in church. My mom started pastoring when I was 1 years old. So being in church was kind of like college for me because at that time I didn't realize as a child that God was preparing me for my future. But now I understand it more now than ever before. Is he was actually preparing me. So I'm thankful for that experience. And I've been married for 30 years. My husband is a pastor. Now he started pastoring 6 months after we became married. And it was one of those things to where it wasn't planned. We never talked about it, and it was something that either one of us didn't desire. And at first, it was like I was a little scared about it, but I would say what helped me the most is my background and just thinking about the different experience and the things that I learned about church and church people and certain things you should do and certain things you shouldn't do in ministry. So that helped me out a lot. And I would say that gave me an upper hand. But
Mhm.
it was a little overwhelming for me too, because when my husband and I got married, I think I was like 8 months pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And yes, I was 8 months pregnant. And also, my husband had been married before, so I
Mm,
was a stepmom.
mm,
So I can say that one of the main things that I learned from those days is that I learned how to trust God and how to pray a lot because I
mhm,
needed it. I needed God's strength, and I would pray about, how to be a good stepmom, how to be a good parent, how to be a
mhm,
good wife, how to be a good pastor's wife. All of those things I prayed to God about a lot. And I can say I'm thankful for that experience because it did bring me closer to God.
mhm,
And a couple years ago, though, I felt like a strong desire, and I felt that God was calling me into something different besides helping my husband out in the church.
mhm,
And at first, I thought that it was more like a change in my career move. That's really what it was about. But it wasn't that. God was calling me into ministry
mhm,
for He wanted me to create something for Christian women. And
mhm.
that's why I started my YouTube channel 3.5 years ago. It's called Chats with Flo.
Okay.
And the purpose of me starting that channel is because that one thing I noticed about being brought up in the smaller churches is that we learn how to worship God and how to draw near to God. But then I noticed as a child that a lot of the Christian women, they were lacking in their roles of being a wife or being a
Mhm,
mom because they were so spiritual. And one thing I learned about God is that he won't us to give him his time, but he also wants us to take care of all of our roles, and he wants us to live a balanced life. And so
mhm,
that's one of the things that I try to teach women is to focus on your husband, focus on your children, you know, try to make your home a pleasant place, you
mhm,
know. And I would say, and not only that, is to focus on becoming a better individual, because
mhm,
I understand and we're not um, Wonder Woman or anything, but it's just that God cares about everything and He's concerned about our personal lives
mhm.
as well.
Yeah, that is great. I love how you talked about balance, teaching balance. And that's a whole another discussion in
Yeah. Yes.
itself. But you do have to have that balance, not only for the task and the duties that you have to fulfill every day, but
Mhm.
also the balance in knowing how to treat others and how to serve others, but then
Yes.
making some time to serve yourself as well. And
Yes.
so sometimes I feel that, women, just the nature of women, we're caretakers. We want
Yes.
to help. We've been raised in environments where we have been instructed that this is what we need to do. This is how we make sure that our home is beautiful and that our family is taken care of. And while we don't mind doing it, sometimes it can become a little overwhelming, and you can, wake up one day and look in the mirror like, oh my gosh, I'm just a hot mess.
That's so
I need
true.
to take some time to really get myself together. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, sometimes we as women, we lose ourselves a little bit,
Yeah.
not just in marriage, but
Mhm.
in serving others sometimes,
Mhm.
or, doing all the things of life, whether you're working outside the home, you're raising children, you're going to school, whatever it is, in church ministries or fulfilling other roles. Sometimes we get a little lost and consumed, and we have to kind of step back and reevaluate things.
And I mean, everything you said is so true. I totally agree with it. And that's why I can say when I got into self care a couple of years ago, it was a life changer for me
Mm,
because it gave me time to evaluate my personal self. and
Mhm.
things that I needed to change about myself and grow in. And even when it comes to low self esteem and things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And I would have never have found my place if I wouldn't have evaluated myself.
Mhm. That's important and that's key. Yep. So that actually leads to my first question. So we
Okay.
talked about the happy wife, happy life, that
Hmm.
phrase, and we asked the question on Instagram already. Is there any relevance to that? Is it true? Does the wife have to be happy and therefore the husband can be happy, the household can be happy? Or is it false? Can you talk to us a little bit more about the truth behind it?
Sure. I mean, it's like I agree with it, but then I also disagree just a little, only because that I do know that in order for the household to be balanced, the wife has to be happy. But in order for the marriage and even for the children, if you have children, to be happy as well, the wife is going to have to be well. She's going to have to be well balanced, and she's going to have to be able to figure out a way to bring happiness for them. And
Mhm.
I learned personally, it's like from being a mom and also for being a wife, is that what helped my marriage and what helped me to become a good mom was that I tried to please my children. I tried to please my husband. And I noticed the more I tried to please him, he started trying to please me in the same way, even with my children. I
Mhm.
respect my kids and I never spanked them. I didn't holler at them. And they gave me the utmost respect, even my stepchildren.
Mhm.
And so it's just one of those things. It's like, so what I learned in order to be happy and to get what I want, I had to learn to treat them the way that I wanted to be treated. And they gave me
Mhm.
back that same respect, things that
Mhm.
I needed from them.
Okay. Great. Now, when you talk about your husband and him giving you that same respect back,
Hmm.
were there any moments where you felt like you were kind of catering to him and he may have been wanting you to do less? Because I know that happens sometimes. Sometimes the our mate may feel like, oh, you're kind of doing too much, or why don't you take some time to yourself? But we are so focused on catering that we just can't see that. So I'm kind of wondering, I guess, did he ever offer up any suggestions for you to take some time for yourself?
That's one thing I can say. What I love about my husband is that he's not the average man to where, like, even when it comes to house duties and things like that, he helped clean the house, he helped cook. When my children, when they were young, I mean, he would babysit and things
Mhm.
like that. And so, and one thing I can say about him is like I never really had to worry about over giving, because with him, yes, he would always step in and say, "Now you done enough,"
Mhm.
and so it's so what's going on with us even now. It's like a bike. Like he tell me that, okay, you don't have to do this, and I tell him I want to do this, and
Mhm.
and the reason what make me want to serve him and what make him want to serve me is because we have learned how to serve each other. So once you
Mhm.
learn how to serve each other, then it's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, that's one key advice that I've heard through premarital counseling and
Mhm.
other ministers say as well, is that it's about serving each other. So
Yeah.
finding out what the other person's need is and being
Yes.
able to deliver that. And when you're focused on that, then it's a give and take. So it's not just that one person is always happy and receiving, but both are. And I think,
Mhm.
like we talked about balance, that's
Yes.
very important. Yep.
Mhm.
All right. Well, let's get on to our next question then. So let's talk about before we even would approach marriage. So maybe this is the single woman or the woman that's engaged. Is there anything that she should do beforehand to kind of prep herself for preparing for the marriage and preparing to be this strong vessel for her husband?
Yes, I would say if I was talking to a single lady, one thing that I would tell her is that first you want to learn how to submit to God,
Mm,
because it's going to be so hard when you get married to be a submissive wife if you're not able to submit to God and submit to his will.
mhm,
And and just by doing that, that actually help prepare you to become a wife. And I would even say, because it's good to have a strong relationship with God, because whether you're married or single, you are going to need him.
mhm,
And sometimes you're going to have to lean on him, even when there may be times where you just feel like you can't make it. And you're going
mhm,
to have to allow God to be your strength. So, one of the main things I would tell a single lady is to submit to God.
mhm. Yeah, I love that. That, I don't think that needs any further explanation because once you submit to God, who is our everything, then there is nothing that you won't be able to do. And you've
That's
already
right.
learned the act of submission. So that's something that you should practice daily anyway, regardless of the relationship that you're in. So I love that.
Amen.
Yeah,
Thank you.
both parties should submit first to God. I love that. So, is there any value in the woman knowing her own identity or maybe having her own purpose and mission in life? Sometimes we may have a hobby or like you, we have a ministry, we have a business, something that we're doing. You're online doing YouTube, and I'm doing all the things. So, is there any value in the woman having something to hold on to before she gets married?
Oh, definitely. I think that's a game changer, because it's like what I notice about a lot of women and even myself, when you like haven't found your place in the world, it's hard for you to be truly happy. And I do know now that you can find that happiness while you are single. And it's so beautiful when you find it while you're single.
Hmm.
And so, because even with myself, I noticed like when I got married, I kind of lost myself, you
Hmm.
know, and I focused so much on being a wife and being a good mom until even a lot of the hobbies and things I had before I got married, I just forgot about them. And it
Hmm.
took me years to rediscover them. It
Mm.
was like I didn't rediscover those things until my kids were grown.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I will tell um, any single person that to where hold on to your hobbies and try to remember those things, and just
Hmm.
and once you find true love, don't let those things go, because I think too it will make you happier, and it
Hmm.
also will bring value to you and your husband. I think that he will even enjoy you more because he know how valuable you are, and
Hmm.
because too everything shouldn't be just about him. You need to
Hmm.
have your own thing going on already.
Right. And then another thing would be, your husband was attracted to you for a reason.
Right.
So there was something that you were doing, something that maybe you were involved in, the whole package. So you don't
Right.
want to lose that package. You just want to enhance the package.
That's true. That's
Yep.
true.
Now, as we speak about balance, though, what would you say to the woman that is super busy and got so many things going on? Now, how would that affect a marriage?
I would say you have to drop some of that and just do what's important and let go some of that other stuff. Because one thing about our society, I notice now, we feel like if you're not busy all the time,
Mm,
then you're not productive. But that's
mhm,
not what success is. That may be successful to the world, but not as Christians. And so I would say, you should drop some of that stuff, because once you become married, now you got to have some time. You got to have some time for him. You got to
mhm,
have some time to try to build your relationship. And two, I would say two is like, and not just when you first get married, but this is a forever thing. So this is something that you're going to have to constantly do. So you want to
mhm.
make sure that your schedule is not so full to where you don't have time to focus on him, because
Right.
he will
Mhm.
get jealous.
Yes. Yes. Definitely will get jealous
Mhm.
and he will command his time.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And I could see that causing some tension in the relationship. especially if the woman feels like, oh, I just have to do this, I have to go to work, and I have all these roles, whether it be church or whatever it may be, and I have to fulfill them. Aren't they good
Mhm.
things? Aren't you happy about that? And so it's not that, he's upset because you're being this all around, good person, but it's because he's not getting enough attention. And the children as well, they could be complaining about that as well.
You're right. And it's just not fair. It's not fair to him and it's not fair to your kids because like we had said before earlier is life is all about balance. You got to learn how to find that balance in your career, balance
Hmm.
in your marriage, and balance as a mom.
Hmm. And I also believe, there's a time for everything.
Hmm.
So while you may really want to pursue this new job, but you know that there are going to be some time constraints and you may have to work some after hours. And this just might not be a good time, a good season for you in your life to pursue something like that, especially if things are already rocky in the relationship, or if you're already struggling with time management. So I think that there definitely needs to be some thought and some consideration to balance, taking up those conversations, even with your family, to see, do you think I'm spending too much time in this area? Would you like me to pull back this? Am I meeting your needs? I think those types of talks are necessary sometimes.
I think so too, because it's like really when you look at your life, you have to evaluate what's more important,
Hmm.
and when it comes down to your family, they should always be number one. And I can say this, it's like one thing I am thankful for about my life is I know what it felt like to be a full-time wife and mom, and I also
Hmm.
experienced what it felt like to be a career mom,
Hmm.
and wife. And it's one of those things to where if I had to do it all over again, I would have just stayed at home and took care of my household because I look at my daughters and stuff, and sometimes I missed out on some things because I was
Hmm.
into retail management, so I had to work weird hours, and most holidays I had to work.
Hmm.
So if I had to do it all over again, I would have just stayed at home because that was more important.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Again, assessing, your values and what you have going on. And it may come to that where you have to maybe stay home or cut out some things so that you can be there for your family, because ultimately they need you and
Yeah.
they are priority. So, yep,
Mhm.
that's a very good point. All right. So when two become one, so how do we maintain an identity? And this goes both for the male and the female. How do we maintain the identity and become one? Is there something special that we need to do in order to make sure that we're always on track, um, that we're always um, in line with each other and not going off on various priorities?
I think that well, I know communication does help, and that's why it's good to stand back sometime and just evaluate yourself in those roles. And if you feel that you're liking, you're gonna have to cut back and do something about it. And even like talking to your husband about it, even talking to your kids. I mean, we got to consider them too. And I think it's good. Like even with now in my marriage, even though my husband and I've been married for a long time, every so often I do ask him, is it something else that you would like me to do more? Is it
Mm-hmm.
something that you are liking? Because from the fact that my goal is I want to please him, and I know how
Hmm.
important it is as a marriage. And I think too that that's a problem with a lot of marriages. Once they've been married for 5 years or more, they feel like that they don't have to please each other, that they don't have to pursue each other. And
Hmm.
you got to pursue each other for eternity.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. And it does seem like, people are super excited when they're in that
Mhm.
honeymoon phase and,
Yeah.
they're talking and communicating well and being attentive to the other person's needs. And then things start to kind of fall off. And I'm not sure if
Mhm.
that's because people just kind of get complacent and, they're just used to the routine. Maybe they start to take people for granted. I'm not sure. Is there anything else you can think of there?
Everything you said, I totally agree. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
We get too comfortable with each other. We'll say, oh, that's just my husband. Or he'll say, oh, that's just my wife. But
Mhm,
we should always try to make sure that we're pleasing each other. And that's one thing that God had been dealing with me about. And I'm so thankful for it. And I'm thankful that I would say that He have gave me insight in that area because it's important. It's important as a wife to want to please your husband and even like I watch a lot of Christian women, especially the ones that's leaders or ministers or
mhm,
preachers, they feel like they're in charge, and God is not pleased with that. We are supposed to live our life by the Bible and we're
mhm.
supposed to believe everything that's in there, even things that we feel that's not beneficial for us. We're still supposed to try to live by it.
Mhm. Yeah, and it does say, that the man is the head. And we
Yes.
always say as women, we are the neck because we
Yes.
support.
Uh-huh.
We definitely
Yeah.
support. He can't turn his head without us.
That's right.
But yeah, there is a hierarchy there, and so we should be doing some things to edify and make sure that our husbands are pleased. And like we talked about earlier, vice versa, he should be reciprocating and giving
Mhm.
us the love that we need as well. And I think all of that together is what can help the two to become one. Because, eventually the things that he enjoys doing may become the things that she enjoys doing, and they end up
Mhm.
doing those things together. Now, we're not saying that, you know, they have to enjoy everything. I'm sure there's some TV shows or what have you that he didn't want to watch. He don't want to watch the Real Housewives and all of that. But, and that's totally healthy. That's totally fine for you to have, some things that you like to do, some friends outside of the marriage that you can go and have brunch or lunch with, and that you guys have friends and relationships together. That's definitely important as well.
And you know what, too? I wanted to say this too because I don't know if I said enough about that, two becoming one. And when you had just mentioned that, how that, you have to learn to maybe do stuff that he like and vice versa. And I can say that that really had have helped me in so many ways by just being a little trying to be open-minded and trying to do stuff that he liked that I feel that I don't like. And later
Mhm.
I found out that I love it. For instance, I'm not an outside person.
Mhm.
And my husband, being that he helps on the inside of the house, he cooks and all this other stuff too. So I want to make sure that he's not doing more for me than I'm doing for him. So I want to
Mhm.
help him too.
Mhm.
So last summer I decided to try to learn how to cut the grass. We have a
Mhm.
huge front yard and a huge
Uh-huh.
backyard. And the first day I did it, it felt kind of good. And what was so funny about it is because I got so caught up in just making sure that my rows are straight because I like everything to be perfect. And
Mhm.
it was soothing. And then not only that, I believe in working out. So I was getting my workout too. So I'm like,
Okay.
okay, this is benefiting me. This is benefiting
Mhm.
him. And it was relaxing for me. And so it is good sometimes to do stuff with your spouse that you feel that you don't even like because you may end up
Mhm.
liking it.
Mhm. That's a great point. And you're taking some load off of him as well by doing the lawn.
Yeah.
I would also say now, if it was for me, I'm not so much into some sports. So, for example, football. I know a lot of women do love football, but I just don't quite understand it. So, one thing for me would be to stretch and at least go and attend, some of the games with the spouse or, watch it on TV, even though I may not be totally paying attention, but it's the effort behind it.
Mhm.
Would you say that's right?
Totally, totally. Because, that's what marriage is. It's a give and take, and you can't have all the wins all the time. We can't
Mhm.
always have our way, even though we like to have our way,
Mhm.
but some things, you just give in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that leads me to another question. You mentioned that we like to have our way. And
Yes.
yes, women, we like to have our way. We're very
Ooh,
opinionated,
yes.
and we just feel like we know it all. And
Yes.
I know I can't be the only one that thinks that.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of it. And I can tell you this too. I have been praying to God about it a lot lately to help me, not to feel like I know it all because I don't know it
Mhm.
all.
Right.
And
Mhm.
that's just not a good feeling for your partner when you do act like that, because even though if
Mhm.
you may not say it, but they can feel it in your attitude.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have
Mhm.
been trying to work on that one.
Now, I had learned, I had been given a tip from an older lady. She said, "Now, you may know, you may know it all, or you may know a
Hmm.
lot of things. You're a
Hmm.
smart person, but sometimes you have to let him feel like he's right and let him
Yes.
lead that process. You could be thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, this is not going to end up well.
And
Oh
sometimes it
my
don't.
god. Right. It doesn't. But to keep
Uh-huh.
the peace and to let
Mhm.
him feel like he's owning something or in that you respect his opinion, you just
Mhm.
let him go with it. Now, I will say
Yeah.
if it's something, catastrophic or it's gonna really have some repercussions, then okay, you need to speak up and say something.
Mhm.
But there are other times when you're like, "Oh, okay, okay. Well, you said it's raining outside. Well, I don't see any rain, but okay, honey. All right, I'll bring my umbrella."
All I can say is, like, one thing that's good about having that kind of mindset is, it's more calming for you, and you're
Mhm,
not gonna be as worried because you have taught yourself not to worry about everything and just
mhm.
stand by and allow him to do it.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and in the end, it usually always works out. There's more than one way to do things, and sometimes we do get a little rigid and feel
Mhm.
like, oh well, my way is better. That's not
Mhm.
true. So let people have some autonomy to make their own decisions sometimes, and just kind of fall back. So
Mhm.
that was some advice to myself because I had to learn that kind of the hard way.
It does take time. It does take time, and it takes a lot of patience too, and,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm. Especially when you are used to being the boss. I
Yes.
was a single parent for so long and just
Mhm.
kind of the head of my household, and so it's like,
Mhm.
this is the way I do things. But when somebody else is coming in,
Mhm.
then you have to respect their opinion as well. Yep.
Wow, I totally agree, and I do understand with what you're saying, and that's why I think too, like, if you've been single for a long time, of course, you are used to taking care of everything because nothing will get done, and so
Mhm.
it's one of those things to where I think that, like, if you were ready, you feel like, you're ready to, get married, then I would even start praying to God to transform my mind about things like that,
Mm.
to
Mhm.
help me to be able to allow Him to take the lead. And I want to say this too, and I'm hoping I'm not jumping way ahead, but I think I kind of am. But
No
that's
problem.
why I would tell any single person too that before you accept someone proposal, you want to make sure that there's someone that you can respect and you trust their judgment, because it's going to be so
Mhm.
hard for you to stand back and allow him to lead the household,
Mhm.
and he's not good at making good decisions.
Right.
So,
Mhm. That's very good advice,
yeah.
because I've been there and I've
Yeah.
heard women say it as well. Well, I
Yeah.
can't let him lead because, he's irresponsible in this
Mm.
category. And it's like, okay,
And it's
well, you
hard.
chose him.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes. It's hard,
yeah.
and it's sad because, like you said, you chose them, and so once you get
Mhm.
into that relationship, you still can't make no excuses and say, well, I would, but we got
Mhm.
to do what the word says.
Mhm. Yeah, and there may be, some kindness that you can show to kind of
Yeah,
nudge him in the right direction.
that's true.
So, if it's money, for example, and he's not great at handling the money, and you guys have decided that he would pay the bills and
Hmm.
such, then okay, you can have some suggestion. Honey, I saw this great video, this class I would like for us to do, or, whatever it is to try to nudge him into the right
Yeah.
direction. But ultimately, like you said, you chose that person, and
Yes.
now you have to accept your role in the
Hmm.
marriage.
Hmm.
So I love that, really take some time to think about whether or not you can trust and be led by this person.
Hmm.
And that's so important because oftentimes I feel like we as women rush into relationships or marriages. I know from my experiences, I had have dealt with a divorce, and I think when I thought back at it, I'm like, well, you know what? I did see some red flags that I should have not overlooked. And so if it wasn't because I just, wanted love so much and I wanted to be in this relationship so badly, maybe I would have taken more time and said, you know what, that's not going to work for me. I don't see how we can be happy and work together because this is a lifelong partnership. And so it's not just for, the next 10, 20 years. It's a
Yeah.
lifelong partnership.
And it's just like you said, it's like the red flags is there, but we can choose to ignore them. I think that once we get married, that we can change that person, but it
Mhm.
doesn't work like that. That person gonna have to want to change their self. That's something that we
Mhm.
just can't convince them to do.
Yes.
So
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. All right. So we talked about balancing and how that can often be difficult, but it is something that women need to work hard to learn the skill of balancing because raising a household and doing things outside the home can be difficult as well, and that could be a straining point on the marriage.
yes,
um, what are some other keys to success that you would recommend
I would recommend. Okay, is this for the single lady or for the married lady?
for the married lady?
Married lady, okay.
Mhm.
I would say too, it's like try to always keep intimacy in your marriage alive. No longer, for some reason, we feel like that once you've been married for a couple of years, then it's okay to not to be intimate with your husband as often. But
Mhm.
that's one thing that you want to keep alive, and it's something. It doesn't happen on itself. It's certain things that you have to do every so often in order to
Mm.
keep that fire burning because it's very important. And I can say too, it's like because um, I think sometimes we underestimate what being intimate with your husband can do for your relationship and to keep it going, because
Mhm.
it does keep that fire in your marriage and make it to where you want to come home.
Yeah.
You can't wait to be with that person. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes as Christian women, we don't take that part as important because we don't think it's as important. And one thing I found out about with God, everything He created is good. And
Mhm.
he created, sex for marriage.
Mhm.
And so, it's good to come together with your spouse as
Mhm.
often as you can.
Mhm.
And I would say another thing too is say respecting your spouse, respecting him, giving him that respect,
Mhm.
and not talking about him negative to your family. And I've seen a
Good.
lot of Christian women, they do that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And another thing too is like when you start having difficulties in your marriage, you got to be careful about who you go to talk to, because some
Yes.
women would give you some bad advice, and they
Mhm.
give you that advice too because they envy your relationship or they may want
Mhm.
what you have. So you
Mhm.
have to be careful about that.
Yes. I would say if you're young in your marriage,
Mhm.
um, it would be best to seek advice from someone who's got some years behind them,
Mhm.
and definitely not a family member.
Right. Right.
Someone outside of family that you can
Mhm.
trust and can be kind of like a mentor, because you need an independent person, but you don't want to smear your spouse's name. And your
Mhm.
family is always going to ride or die with you, regardless if you
That's
right or
true.
wrong. So yeah, and then you come back to them. You come back
Mhm.
to your spouse, and then your family's
Mhm.
looking at you like, you know.
And it's one of those things too. It's too like once you do that, they not gonna respect him anymore.
Mhm.
Even if you guys
Right.
are made up, and everything is okay, but they're not gonna look at him the same. So you have to watch. You have to watch that. And then not only that, that goes back into treating him the way you want to be treated. I definitely wouldn't want my spouse to talk about me in a negative way
Mhm.
to
Right.
anyone else, whether they're male or female.
Mhm.
And I would say another thing. It's good to take care of yourself, take care of your appearance,
Mm.
practice self care. All of that stuff
Mhm.
is important because in order for you to be a happy wife, you're gonna have to be happy mentally, and
Mhm.
you're gonna want to exercise every so often, because one thing I can say that every time I exercise, it makes me feel good and it gives me
Mhm.
more energy. It makes me feel positive. And so I like to exercise just for that reason. And it
Mhm.
also helped me to focus. And that's important. I mean,
Yes.
being having a good relationship and being a good wife is just so much more than what we think. It's not just one particular thing, but it's just like in every little area of your life. You want to have that balance. You're gonna have to
Mhm.
practice that self-care. You're gonna have to spend some time alone and
Mhm.
continue to have your hobbies. Or if you don't have a hobby, you need to find some. All of
Mhm.
that is important, because when you're happy, then your behavior is going to be more positive
Yes.
towards him.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, I like how you tied in working out to your
Yeah,
mental health,
yeah.
and that affects your happiness, your mood. You
Mhm.
probably have more energy to attend
Mhm.
to the family and still have some left over. Although we don't want to give the husband the leftovers.
Right?
But
That's true. Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I like what you said about, just kind of keeping up yourself as
Yeah.
well. Because again, we're going back to how they met you. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes you may end up looking better than you did in the beginning.
Yeah, for
and I
real.
and I say,
Yeah.
it's great to enhance, not
Mhm.
necessarily, go the opposite way.
That's
But with you being married for 30
right.
years, how do you keep your husband attracted to you? Are there any, I mean, that might be too much, but
Okay.
are there
I'll
some things or some tips and tricks that you can give
I'll
the women?
I will make it rated G. So
Okay.
it's like, okay, you know how, okay, it's like same thing that you did when you guys were dating. You should continue to do when you get married. Same way
Mhm.
when you were dating your spouse, you did little things to make him attracted to you, and you flirted with him. And
Mhm.
so with me, I flirt with my husband, but I don't flirt with him with words. I just do it like physical, do little things. I
Mhm.
may walk around the house with something, really cute on,
Mhm.
and act like I'm not paying him an attention. Guys like that,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
And even like, go back to the keeping yourself up, and staying clean, hygiene, things like
Mhm.
that is very
Mhm.
important.
Mhm.
Um, Try not to walk around the house looking a mess all, because
Not all the time.
yeah, because
Yeah.
one thing I can say is like, even now, okay, I stopped working maybe like 3.5 years ago. So even though I stopped working, now I still try to make sure that every day that I groom myself, because it's not even so much just for him, but for myself, it keeps
Mhm.
me positive. When I look
Mhm.
in the mirror, and then my hair is combed, I have on something like a little decent, something attractive. It's gonna make me feel pretty, and I think it's very
Mhm.
important. if you're single or even married, just to keep up your
Mhm.
appearance, and that helps your marriage. And one thing I can say too with my husband, I like about him, he does the same thing. And a
Mhm.
lot of times, I know like some women may have a husband to where he don't fix himself up and things like that, but make sure that you are doing it, because most of the time now, if they see you doing it, they're gonna catch the hint. They're gonna follow
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
lead, because it's like one of the key things I learned in marriage is that it's like we as women, we have so much more power over our husband's behavior than what we think about. And it
Mm.
have more to do, and God put that in us, but it's
Mhm.
just that we just have to use it in a positive way. We don't need to be
Mhm.
conniving or anything like that. But I can say it's like, so whatever it is that you want from your husband, if you give him that same behavior, he is going to give that back to you. It's just the way it
Mhm.
is. And even
Mhm.
in the word of God, it talks about that too, how that, a sanctified wife, she's going to sanctify her husband, and she's going to do
Mhm.
it through her behavior. So if you can convince your husband to get saved just by your through your behavior, we can convince him to do other things through our behavior too.
Mhm. All right, very true. Yeah. And I heard, being a little flirtatious as well.
Yeah.
Don't let that leave.
don't
Yeah.
don't turn it off,
Yeah, don't turn it off. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say this right quick, and I'm gonna speed it up because I know we're running out of time.
Mhm.
For the longest in my marriage, I would feel a little guilty, when I would be intimate with my spouse and I would just really enjoy it. So, I would feel guilty because I didn't think that that was, something that a Christian woman should do, just
Mm. Mhm.
enjoy her spouse like that. But then, going back to that scripture where it says that, how that when God created everything, he did create sex for marriage. So
Yeah.
enjoy it, and
Mhm.
try to keep it alive in your marriage. And I'm a witness that you can do it. You don't have to let that fire burn out.
Mm. That's important. Yeah. That's great to hear. Because I'm sure there are some women out there that, are wondering, as you age, how will
Yeah.
things continue to go? But intimacy is not always just about sex as well. I mean, there's the little things, the flirting, the touching, the
Mhm.
whispering, sweet little nothings in
Ah,
someone's ears. So yeah, it's good
mhm.
to hear that you can continue to do these
You
things.
can. It's just one of those things that where it's like whatever that's important to us as women, and if it's important to us, we can find a way to do it, and we can find a way to keep it alive.
Mhm.
Whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I think that one of the worst things you can do, like when you get married, or even before you get married, you believe what everybody else say, when it says, well, girl, you're like, once you've been married for a couple of years, you ain't gonna care about this and that, whatever, whatever. No, that's not true. It don't have to be like that. But if
Mhm.
if you don't do anything, it's going to be like that for you too.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, we've talked about several things that we can do to keep ourselves up as women and make sure that we are happy, our family and our spouse is happy in the relationship. Now, what advice would you give someone, particularly a woman who is experiencing maybe some hardships in her marriage? Is there anything that maybe that she could do to try to spice things up and keep the marriage happy or get it back to where it used to be?
I do want to say this too, like in every marriage, and in my marriage as well, you're gonna go through those seasons. It's gonna get hard, and you're gonna feel like giving up, and that's normal. I don't care who you marry, and even let's say if this your soulmate, even with your soulmate, you're going to have some issues because it's normal. Because for one thing, we are human, and nobody is perfect,
Hmm.
and that happens too because from the fact that two people are trying to become one. And so every so often, you're going to bump heads, or one of you are going to make a mistake,
Hmm.
and it could be something that's very hurtful. And I would say this is when that happens in your marriage, you do want to pray and just ask God for, strength, and he will strengthen you. It's like one thing I learned about God, whatever thing that's going on in our life, and we are concerned about, he's concerned about too. And he wants us to have good marriages. He wants our marriages to work. And
Mhm.
so what I've learned personally, like no matter what the situation is that's going on in my marriage and how difficult it seems, I try to wait and I try to trust God and ask him for direction, before
Mm.
I just step and do something I don't think is good just to move fast. You want to make sure that you're making, the right decision about your
Mhm.
marriage. And so I will wait on the Lord. And in the meantime, while I'm waiting on the Lord, I would try to make sure that I'm treating my husband the right way. And I know it's going to be hard, especially if the offense came from him.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where in that type of situation, I learned to put my trust more than God in God, more than myself.
Mm.
And I also had to learn to not give up on my marriage because of the way that things look. Because sometimes, if we wait, that God will change things around. And
Mm.
so I would say the key too is waiting and praying about it and then asking God what he need you to do. And if he don't say anything, I think that that means that it's your decision,
Mm.
it's your decision.
Wow.
And you have to do what you think is best for you.
Mm. That's some really good advice. I love that. Pray, wait and pray. So be
Mhm.
patient and
Yeah.
make sure that you are attentive and you are in a space where you can hear
Yeah.
what God has for you as far as the next move. But then also, like you said, if you don't hear anything, you
Yeah.
can take that as it's
Hmm.
your decision to make. So, wow,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
that's powerful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Because it's like, I understand. I understand. Marriage is so hard. And it's one of those things where I can't tell you, well, you need to stay. Are you,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
need to leave. That's
Hmm.
something that you have to decide. You have to do what's best for you, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And either way, the decision is gonna
Mhm.
it's gonna take some work.
It's going
It's
to take
gonna be
some
hard.
work, whether you
Hmm.
stay or leave. It's going to take some work. And I can say this too. Another thing that I learned, and it's hard, but you're going to have to do a lot of forgiving. You have to forgive because when you hold on
Mm-hmm.
to that stuff, you become bitter, you become short patient. It's going to be
Yeah.
hard for you guys to even communicate because you're going to be mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had to learn to
Learning to
forgive.
forgive.
Yeah,
And
and it's
also
like,
I would oh, go
I'm
ahead. Hmm.
sorry, go on.
No,
I
I
just
was
want to
just
say
gonna
this.
say therapy too would be some
Therapy,
yeah,
yes,
talking to someone,
definitely.
couples therapy.
Oh, yes, Lord.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I
Go on with what
definitely,
you're gonna say.
I was gonna say, let me think. Oh God.
Uh-oh, you
Um,
lose it, did you?
I
Oh.
did. Let's see, we were talking. Let me
Well,
go.
hopefully it comes to you before we end. Um, but I am just so thankful for the conversation that we've had so far. I am not currently married, as I talked earlier about having gone through divorce, but these I felt like there were some good nuggets of wisdom that was shared and some good advice that a woman can use prior to marriage, and then actually in the marriage as well. So thank you so much for just sharing with us. And I've hoped that people have been able to be inspired and they have taken some wisdom home as well. So tell us again where we can find you. And if you remember what you were going to say, you can go ahead and share that as
Um,
well.
I think I just was gonna say something about it's like, oh, when I was saying that how that we were talking about having difficulties in marriage, and I had mentioned that you want to make sure that you are still doing good deeds, and it's going to be so hard because it's hard to do good deeds and have a good attitude towards your spouse, and you feel that he's not doing right, he's not doing what he's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only way you're going to be able to do it is you're going to have to really trust God and believe His word. And it's like, and so once you put your trust in God and more than yourself, then you will be able to continue to treat him the right way, even if he's not giving, you know, you the respect or something that you need. You just have to really
Mhm.
trust God. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, that's where the faith
yeah,
component is going to be absolutely key.
yeah.
Hmm. Great point. So, where can we find you? And do you have anything going on that we should be aware of?
Okay, okay. You can find me on YouTube at Chats with Flow, and I also have a Facebook group called Chats with Flow, and it's for Christian women. And next week, I'm actually going to go live in my Facebook group, and I'm going to be talking about how to overcome self doubt and insecurity because that's something that I battled with all my life. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
be talking about that, and I also have a Facebook page. You can find me there, Chats with Flo.
All right. And I love that handle, Chats with Flow.
Thank
Easy
you.
to remember. And I just want to remind everyone about my devotional, She Exudes Confidence, Faith, and Prosperity. In the devotional, there's 25 different scriptures that cover a variety of topics, talking about love and faith and how to endure challenges. There's affirmations in the devotional as well. And there's a confidence building tool as well, because ultimately I am trying to encourage and empower women to be bold and have more confidence and faith in their lives. So I would encourage you to check that out at theconfidentlily.com. And I will put that in the comments. I'll put the website in the comments. But also just follow me on Facebook and Instagram, always giving inspiration out, free inspiration. And we will be back next week, actually, for another episode. But again, thank you so much, Ms. Florence, for joining us and sharing. And it's just been such a treat to have you today.
I just want to say thank you for having me. And I do want to say this too. It's like I found out about you through your blog, and I just love your mission statement and what you are doing
Thank
for
you.
Christian women. I think you're doing a beautiful thing. Yeah,
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really
you're
do.
welcome.
And if you hadn't noticed, you got some comments here. You have some fans. Here's some hello, First Lady. Yes, they are checking you out. So you guys share
Awesome.
this with others and be blessed. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Bye.